I'm live here, RipCurrents. It's just me, myself, and I today. And a little late because I was just scrambling because I was, normally have a different format, but thought today I'd share some slides, share some thoughts, and something that's a little different. This is episode 3 of RipCurrents. I'm your host, Scott Martin, and I'm the founder of Groundswell, author of Groundswell, the book, The Unseen Wave of Business Growth. And we're live here every Friday at noon Mountain Time, 2 Eastern. I like to go live for up to an hour. We'll see how long this goes. I'm just hitting record and just trying to get into the routine of like being live here, just being raw, real, and connecting with whoever shows up here on live or wants to watch the recording. Um, this last week has been really interesting. I got there's a new platform. Was approached by a friend of mine, Craig, who's just an incredible individual who introduced me to the owner of Hubble, which is this up and coming platform for coaches, experts, mentors, and I know that my friend Sean Ellis and both Craig are on that platform and some other incredible people. And it just made me think a little bit about what's changing right now in the world of Instagram, internet coaching, and stuff. And it really feels like curation is one of those things because and by curation I mean not only curation of content, curation of people, and I think it's going to be these elements of like think of community. AI, in the form of a community. It's about human connection side of community. You're meeting and talking with different people. There's a gated area. You're kind of talking with one another under a premise or a journey or hoping to accomplish something together. I think LinkedIn is a little bit like that too. But inside of it, there's content that's AI and generated things. But generally speaking, we kind of know who's who in the zoo by looking at the LinkedIn. It's verified. I think that's another thing is verifying who people are. But the trend that comes to mind is curation, and curation is I'm looking at like think of conference speakers. They're curated to create a feeling, a vibe, something that connects them all. And this platform Hubble is like curating the top experts that you can hire on demand by hour, half an hour, or 15 minutes. And I just find it really interesting. I think this is going to be a growing trend, that, almost like leaning into um, the what do they call it? The on demand economy. It's I can't remember the name what the name of it is. I think it's called. I thought it was like the on demand economy, but it's not. It'll come to me in a minute. But it's like the gig economy. Pardon me. So the gig economy, where it's like we're really shifting away from more extended engagements in some ways, or at least portion of some of our engagement. I look at the breakup of the way that I work. When people work with me, they can hire me to do brand strategy. It's a pretty involved thing, 6 to 8 months, sometimes a year, to redesign, rebuild, and re-strategize an entire growth strategy, brand blueprint, and the brand strategy and design. Or they can hire me for on-demand coaching, and so I'm on the going to be on the platform on the next cohort. But I've been doing this for years. But I look at what's changed is moving from just having one style of offering as an agency or as an individual, and I think consultants and people are doing this are kind of like breaking up the ways that you can work them to make it more accessible in some cases. My point being on the curation is I think what's really interesting and exciting, what's possible for brands, and what I mean by personal brands and consultants is this, the idea of like working together in groups. And for now, I'll call them circles of trust. And the reason is that in the book I'm writing, it's called Title Shift, and the book is really about how we're leaving this age of attention. I'm going to go through some slides to kind of share with you a little bit more in depth there, and they're so not planned, so I'm going to be probably like maybe skipping through. But a title shift. So we're leaving this age of attention, moving this age of trust. And part of this age of trust is going back to the days where we want to be we like I think of back in the days of like pioneers. It's like you're putting your arm over Farmer Bob and you're going, hey, can we trust Farmer Bill with our bales? He's like, well, it's slow to pay, but he's a good guy. So that we had to kind of come together, circle the wagons, literally, to protect ourselves or to kind of like manage risk, or in the case of what's going on with AI and people not trusting content, or consultants or individuals that are branding themselves using all this incredible information, but it's not really from them. They don't really know that content. I'm not saying that's pervasive. I think it's going to be where there's more mistrust. I look now. I don't. Tell me if you guys feel this. Like when you look at sometimes some content, like I noticed that I saw one recently that was like, I think it was a koala bear that someone rescued, and I'm like, oh, that's such a good story and stuff. And I'm like, man, like I should have been seeing a lot of like little animals rescued, and sure enough, it got me. I'm like, it totally was AI, but it looked so real. It was so compelling, and I was like, and I love the story. And then I kind of feel like my pulling on my heartstrings. I feel a little bit like now I'm going to question, and I do this sometimes. I don't know if you guys do. Like, I kind of go, my reaction never before it came in my language a year ago was it AI? I'm always going, is this AI? I don't know if I'm reading like a headline or a PDF that someone downloaded, goes to a white paper. I'm going, is there AI in there? To what degree, and so forth. So I think that we're shifting away from just sort of like blind trust, and we're gonna start circling and going, hey, if you're on, like when someone goes in my community, I go, are you on LinkedIn? What's your URL? Because I just want to verify that they're a real person. I don't want anyone that's gonna be a bot or a troll or something of that nature. And I think of curation and community and circles like that as being a way of like not only verifying but kind of creating a collective marketing group, circles of trust, if you will. And anyways, that's sort of a little bit of a premise of some things I'm going to show you. It has nothing to relate to the slide that's on here. I know that I'm sharing my slide and it has absolutely zero to do with it, except for to say that I wish I had the courage to be true to myself and not the life of others expected me to me. And it's like one of the, I think from Bronnie Ware, it's one of the top regrets of the dying. And when I wrote my TED talk, when I was thinking about what is the stakes, what are the stakes of being unauthentic? And it's my point about circles of trust and authenticity and using AI. It's like I think that we may reflect on our lives that we had the courage to be with without perfection. We had the courage to have our voice. We had the courage to show up on these platforms. I mean, for me, it just worked out that I just had to change a plan and to show up today and just sort of wing it. I was like, I'm just going to challenge myself, summon my courage, and just, I don't, who's going to judge me? You guys might judge me because maybe this isn't coherent, but hopefully not. Hopefully it is coherent. But I got the courage. There's a great quote I heard from Tony Robbins, which is, "Courage unused doesn't expand," and that just really lands for me because I've noticed that in my career, and I noticed that when it comes to content, and it's, again, directly relating to AI and what we're experiencing with content. I think it's beautiful tools. I'm not a person who thinks that I'm against AI. I'm just more the inauthentic presentation of yourself using AI instead of you being authentically yourself wherever you're at. I think people are craving that, and they're going to crave it even more, and they're going to encourage. So, I think the stakes are high is what I want to sort of land the plane on that particular comment. Now, if I know how to click the next slide, I will be off to the races, and I don't. So I need to click on this slide maybe. I'm using the screen. There we go. I figured it out. Because they got like dual screen. I got this whole thing going with dual screen. I know there's this great quote that I use in the opening of my TEDx, which is advertising and marketing is tax you pay for being unremarkable. But attention is tax you pay for being unremarkable. Meaning you need to get attention. And I think attention is never going to go away. I don't think attention is necessarily a bad thing. But I think there's like a spectrum of attention. It's if I could yell and get your attention and you turn, that's like, clickbait and stuff. I think where our adrenals are being kind of attacked, and we're getting sort of more wary of things that are attention grabbing versus compelling. I think there's room for, like, that's why I think the podcasts are so wonderful, because you kind of like can get into the topic. It's not just like sound bites, and there is a volume of, like, I noticed that when I use this app that I'm on to go live on here, at the end of it, I can totally rip out like 8 or 10 little micro things. Oh, and I've got my nieces that have decided to jump in and join us live. Hey, you guys want to come say hi? You, broken leg. They have broken legs, and they've come to. Do you want me to fix you really quick? Okay. Anyways, they just want to come say hi. My kids or my nieces are here, and we're taking care of them, and they're just been a joy. It's been one of the awesome things with having them for like 3 days. And I don't mind. They've actually come in and just again, this is authentic. This I wasn't trying to get your attention, but this is authentically just showing up as you are. I think I did a podcast with actually several people. My dog barks all the time, and I just leave the barking in there. You know, it's like it is what it is. I think that is what is coming, is just having the bravery, the courage to use your courage to just kind of do that. And speaking of courage, you know, one of my I love this quote, and this from Sean Thompson, who's the founder of Instinct. This is way back in the day when he launched the company. This was a poster that's hung in my room for years, and I love it. It's simple. You get the waiver, it gets you. It's about courage. Like you just gotta like, it's just like this challenge to go out there and more importantly, with this is what I love, the authenticity of this. As a surfer, I lived in, to give you a little background, I left home when I was where I moved from Canada to Hawaii when I was like 19. And everyone went to university, and I went to North Shore. I was pursuing a windsurfing career on North Shore of Maui. And before that, this campaign came out. I just loved it because it was so authentic. It was raw. It's simple. It spoke to like, you kind of got it if you were a surfer, right? And you're like, oh man, I remember. And at the time, I wasn't a surfer, but I got the message. Like I wanted to be just like these surfers in this, right? And there's this whole campaign that they did that was really talking about the truth of being a surfer. It was just sort of, you can see from the pictures, and this kind of related to this authenticity. The fact that my nieces came in, you know, there's, if you look at the pictures, I interviewed Sean Thompson on my podcast. I'll put the link in the notes in the replay, and I asked him about his campaign. He said, "Listen, the agency I worked with and we worked together on was, his direction was, I wanted it to feel real. You have to understand how forward thinking this is, given the time of frame when this was the beginning of just a massive boom within the surf skate branding industry. It was just such a boom, and it was just at the beginning of the cusp of that. And you would get these pictures of these perfect, like you've probably all seen them, right? A guy in this, it doesn't even look real. It's like tube in Hawaii, and there's like right in the middle, it's perfect, you know, the bikinis and everything. And what he did was, what's behind the scenes? What's real? There's no such thing as a bad day on the beach. You know, it's like, I forget that surfing. No matter what happens, nothing can take it bad away. This is my favorite. Life, surfing is life. The rest is details. You know, and it's like, if you're a surfer, you get it deeply. It's truth well told. I just love that. It's like, these are truths well told, and the truth is also in the visuals. And I think what I'll do in one of the future lives, I'm going to show you guys something I've done in AI, because I use AI for marketing and for a client, this brand Arc Vets that we've done it for. But this is kind of like user generated content, which is, I think is something that is going to be surging. Again, it's like, there's something about this. If you're a surfer, you're in the circle of trust. You got this whole circle of understanding, a circle of truth, right? And we have those in communities, language that we all share that only you know if you get it. If you're in the marketing industry, there's you know, acronyms and different things, right? But in the end of the day, it's like the goal is to get out of the sea of sameness, and AI is just like this tsunami of sameness, grayness, as I Chuck Kunzo calls it. And in that case, he was actually getting out of the sea of sameness by doing something so authentically different. It was just so ahead of his time. That's why I bring it up, and it's just sort of ties tightly into my branding. It's like it always. I got so captivated those ads before I was even in advertising and marketing. Um, don't remember why this slide is here, to be honest with you. It's not related, or if it is, oh, okay, I know what it is. Okay, so I'm reading my notes over here because it's like one of the original presentations I was going to do a while ago, and it says here, Brene Ware, who wrote the book on the regrets of the dead, would have been proud, because I've done this repeatedly, where and this is the case where I moved to the North Shore and I lived there pursuing this windsurfing career. I have no regrets. Like, it was such an incredible time in my life. And it's like maybe something I gift that I'd say to anybody. I know that Joe Paluzzi has got a new book about really finding your purpose and really following your heart. I can't wait to read it. It's called Burn the Playbook. I'm going to be seeing him at the CEX event, which is a couple weeks. I recommend anybody if wants to meet me, go to that event. Let's plan to send me a note. I'll meet with you at the event. It's the preeminent event about what's really going on, about how to resonate with your audience, how to connect using content. We look at content. It used to be. I was watching this really great keynote from Gary Vaynerchuk, and I loved what he kind of said here. He's like, we've been living in the paid, earned, and then owned, right? In that order of like how we categorize marketing. So we're going to pay to get ads. We're going to hopefully get people to share, and get more PR from it and so forth. Especially if you think of paying, spiking social media and whatever, and then owned. Like where you actually, it's all organic. And he says the game is organic, and I've always thought organic is better. It's harder to do, and he says it's flipped now. It's going to be organic first. It's now going to be owned, earned, and paid. And that just, to me, is the new way of differentiating yourself and being brave about authentically going and doing things differently. So, anyways, that was just the me kind of like talking about how I decided to just like be brave and go traveling and I ended up surfing and traveling around for years doing that in my 20s. I don't know how many of you guys feel this thing about attention. It's like this is where I have, like, from the last live and the one I'll get today, when I'm done, it'll give me, AI will give me 12 different clips that I could just bombard out there, and I feel it's like we're just being bombed with our attention, like the volume of attention that is asked of us. Like we're the post, the AI is just like compounding that, and to me, is there room for going the other way? I've seen several people talk about, everybody's trying to yell, why not whisper? If you're, and that's about getting out of the seat of state, doing being account. I love being contrarian by nature, but this to me is profoundly interesting. The idea that we're completely, I thought that was for me. Hold on here. Okay, I got a little text. I thought it was like an emergency text. Is that we're just getting bombarded with all the attention that comes through our feeds, and it feels like we're being bombed. And part of it is because we're in these like things I call it the attention industrial complex, and it's like the yellow pages. So just follow me for a minute on this analogy. So the attention industrial complex is like this relentless. Every channel we're on, it's like, how do I get more views, likes, follows? And it's like they're designed to kind of grab our attention, to bombard us. With between all the different things going on. If you think of yellow pages back in the day, the yellow pages, it was like an arms race, like it is now with the attention complex. If you were, it used to be, if I was Ned's Plumbing, you just go put a listing in there. But then you're like, oh man, there's like, people started going, well, the real people that got the volume, it's a little bit like the gamification of Google. It's like I was AAA plumbing, and then AA plumbing or whatever, right? And then on top of it, you could pay to go where AAA is if you were Zed's plumbing, and advertise right beside AAA because your name just, so it's this never-ending paid way of getting attention. That's what I'm going back to the circles of trust, and where people are looking at more, I think, organically finding meaningful content or people, is it's all gamified, and we're kind of over it. If I look at this, like our attention is like the collapse of attention. This is from my book that I'm going to be publishing, talking a little about this, is the collapse of attention. And there's also this content, just like absolute, these weapons of mass distraction, and pandas going down slides with shotguns turning into a pizza commercial. It's unbelievably, overwhelming. And we're right at this point of time where it's like, what's going to happen next? And to me, it's this shift, this shift between, as I started this talk, between trust and attention. This age of attention. I mean, go back to Mad Men days. It was about billboards. It was about TV commercials, and as you know, then more radio, more stations, more channels, more likes, more follows. It's like we've kind of like hit this like tide is like ended. There's this in between tide called slack tide. So if you think of tides in the ocean, because I always use biomimicry and a lot of stuff I do, and Groundswell, my book is very much following how a groundswell wave works. The tides work in the way where the tide goes a one direction, and then in between there's this moment in time where it's like called the slack tide. And the reason is there's nothing moving. If you're actually surfing, it kind of feels weird. It's sort of soupy. Divers love it because you don't have to move around. It's a short period of time, and I believe that we're entering close to this slack tide, which is like just where we're completely our mistrust is so big that it's going to usher in. Have you ever noticed that nothing truly happens until there's enough pain? You know, it almost happens with everything. There's this great story of a dog that's sitting on a porch, and a farmer walks up, and he's going and talking to Farmer Bob, we'll call him, and he goes, "Hey, your dog's whining. Like, what's wrong with your dog?" He's sitting on the porch there, and he goes, "Oh," he goes, "He's sitting on a nail." And he's like, "Well, why doesn't he move?" He's like, "Well, it doesn't hurt enough." And isn't that kind of true about a lot of things in life? Like, think of the time maybe in your life where you had a major breakup. It wasn't until it got really bad before you finally said, "Never another day, not another moment." Whether it's your weight, your exercise, or something like a decision in business, leaving a job. Like, it's always comes to what's called Tony Robbins calls a threshold. We haven't met the threshold yet, I think, in our lives, but I think that there's this new. We're getting there. We're mistrusting, and really we're just kind of having enough of this, and I believe that it's going to usher in this new era of trust. And this mistrust in between here is what's going to drive it. It's not because we all want more trust, but I don't think, if you think of why did verification happen? Because people started creating fake profiles or trolling. Because you're not trusting who the people are, right? Like things are, it's like almost like a protective mechanism that we have. It's like we finally have had enough, right, of these things. So if you think of just logically follow this pattern, it's really about a pattern. I'm not predicting the future. I'm really looking at a pattern that's a repeatable pattern. And if you think of trust, is 70% of consumers say that trust in a brand is more important than liking the brand. Now, isn't that interesting? It's like, if you trust a brand, I'd rather trust a brand than like the brand. That to me is a really an interesting strategic move. Ask yourself, what am I doing to build trust? What are the mechanisms for building trust versus being liked? See, liking is like if you want someone to like you, it's about attention. But trust is about I need to do things, I need to act a certain way, right? It's like think of know like trust, right? Remember that's kind of the way that we I think the model was for influence was like you need to be known. Then once you're known, people are gonna like you, make a connection, and then they'll trust you and take action. And I think the tide is just tipping over. We're going into this where it's going to be something far different, where it's actually going to go to trust like no. Let me see if I can flip my screen here. Where we go. Thank you. And it's like I think the scale is going to tip to this model of people you trust, circles of trust, things that you trust. Once they trust you, that's how they're going to like you. I'm not going to give you a pass until I trust you. You demonstrate you're trustworthy. And then when I like you, that's when I'm going to actually share and you will be known. Sounds weird, sounds counterintuitive. I challenge anybody to kind of show up in chat and talk to me about this, but I believe that that's what's shifting in. It's real versus not real. It's like it's this little, we have this little meter. I call it the BS meter 2000. Tell me this isn't true. Your BS meter 2000 is it going off right now? It's like and then like in the weirdest ways, right? Like I look at my feed in email and it's like it says all the right things. It's very personal to me. It says Scott Martin. It has all these little personal things, and I'm like, something about it is really, it's automated. It's not personal. But and then they go, oops, I forgot to send this email. Like, have you seen those attention getting headlines, like almost like, oh Scott, I forgot to tell you this, or oh man, make sure you do this or whatever. And you're like, oh, it got me, and I'm over those now. I don't think, well, any of us see them. Our BS meter is just, it's getting stronger. And so, to me, that is the quintessential thing that I think is changing for us as humans in this world of being, fake news and fake AI and different things like that, right? So, um, industrial conflicts. I got something here. Explain what is called movie trailer mistrust. Sucks. I don't feel Rotten Tomatoes. Oh yeah, okay. So you can tell I didn't take the time to. I did because I didn't have time, frankly, to review this. And it's like this. Think of a movie. So I'm going to simplify this as an example of a movie. So think of a movie trailer that you saw that was incredible. And it was like, and I remember the Phantom Menace was like that. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the new Star Wars movie. Been out for a while. I don't know if any of you guys felt the same way. Then you saw the movie, you're like, oh, this is such a disappointment. Jar Jar Banks and stuff. You're like, oh man, how many times you've watched a trailer and the best it was the trailer. It's like marketing and marketers that are liars. It's like the best it was the day that they delivered. They sold you on it, or they presented, or the marketing of it. And we're just like, again, mistrustful. So what do we do when we think about what you've done? Like, we want to protect our time and attention. Time, money, and attention are pretty valuable three things, right? And so for me, anyways, the next thing I would do is I go to Rotten Tomatoes and I go, okay, this movie is going to be great. It's a 5 out of 5 Rotten Tomatoes, and then it's totally sucked. And why? Well, it's not that it sucked. For somebody, it actually was a 5 out of 5. They're a bunch of 12-year-olds, and they happen to be overwhelmingly rating on that. So that doesn't really work. Then we look for sort of a blended, to diversify our risk. And I think of IMDb. It takes ticket sales, it takes Rotten Tomatoes, it takes critics and stuff, and it kind of blends it. And that's actually, it can be pretty good. You think of a lot of standards like that could be out there, that help you make decisions, right? To go, yeah, this has kind of been reviewed by these individuals and stuff. The truth is, one of the things, this is a personal thing. My wife and I, we spent a lot of time going, what do you want to watch? What do you want to watch? And I got so tired of it because I was like, sometimes I just don't care. And sometimes it's like we spend more time than, by the time we've watched a movie, we've already burned a half an hour looking through Netflix. I don't know if anyone can relate to that. Just put a happy face in the chat. And so what we did was we went, I tell you what, why don't we challenge ourselves? We did this earlier this year. We're going to go through the IMDb top 200. We didn't get past like 60 before we started going. I mean, even the first, like in the first like 20, if you ever watched them, there's some that surprised me. I'm like, I would never consider watching it. It's incredible. I'm glad it was amazing. And then there's several there. I'm going, like, I'm sure I'm gonna be called a heretic right now. Like Casablanca, that sucked. I thought it was terrible, but everybody thinks it's amazing. And I'm like, I don't get it. Maybe it's not good for me. So again, there's something there that wasn't accurate for me. But then I went to the next thing, which is somebody came to me and they go, Scott, there's this great movie called Endless Summer. It's about surfing. It's like it's set in 1960s or whatever, and they happen to know I like surfing, whatever. And I watched it. It was the best movie ever. See, they knew something about me. It was personalized to me to the degree where, and that's where I think like AI agents or circles of trust, people that trust you, know and like you, that are going to go, hey, I'm making these recommendations, group recommendations. And I think that's what the future is for us, protecting our time, money, and attention. And a big part of that is because this. How many of you remember the movie Elf? It's like a story from the future. Imagine a place of trust on the North Pole where his BS meter hasn't been installed yet. He excitedly, I remember he bursts into the thing, goes, congratulations guys on the world's greatest cup of coffee, everybody. And everybody looked at him, sort of staring at him, really confused, and beaming with joy. He was clearly thinking that he had everyone accomplished something huge, and they all were bewildered. And we as the audience we looked at that and we kind of laugh at it because we're like, he clearly saw that this thing was the jankiest cup of coffee, and it was like there was just these wild claims. How many times do people, when you say, you're the world's greatest, this is what really is driving another component of me trying to create attention, people trying to create attention, and it drives mistrust because nothing will kill a product faster than a good advertising for a bad product. I think it's a quote that I've heard somewhere. Maybe we all have, right? And you know, and then he gets wise. His BS meter sort of like starts working, and then he's like saw Santa later because now he's getting a little bit of clue, and he's like, and he saw Santa that wasn't the real Santa because from Santa Claus. And he goes, "You sit on a throne of lies." Buddy approached him, with suspicious, you know, and so he left. It's about being incoherent. It's about being authentic. Like I think that's what really one of the messages is like just have the bravery to be authentically yourself. Because this is like I think a lot of times in what I think we're leaving is this perfection. The idea of like high production value equals something we trust. And it's really almost the opposite in some ways, where it's like it's more about authentic than it is high production. It's about it. This is really a story about being incoherent. Like he knew that Santa was incoherent. 86 of consumers say that authenticity is core element of coherence. What I call my brand strategy is brand coherence. That's what I'm advocating. That's what I'm really kind of driving at is it's not about creating the perfect brand. It's not about creating the consistency. I mean, consistency can be a portion of it, but it's about coherence. Like what you say as a brand, what you say as a consultant, what you say on LinkedIn here, what do you do? Is it coherent with what you're delivering? What other people saying? Are you living on a throne of lies? Um, and the key is when deciding what brands to support, whereas attention grabbing tactics without authenticity to fail to build lasting relationships. So this was from the Journal of International Business Studies in 2023. But this is something that I really found very interesting. I want to get a guy who did the research for this. Mistrust and lack of confidence in AI's ability will drive some of the most consumers seek out AI-free brands and interactions. And this again, I don't want to come off like I'm anti-AI, but what is interesting is they came up with this new category, which is 20% of brands are going to lean into the positioning, the absence of AI. They're calling it the acoustic brands. What a cool name for it. I heard Anne Hanley talk about, analog intelligence. I believe there's going to be a surge, and it doesn't mean that like when people say things like when it's this and it's like it's when the internet came, it didn't kill junk mail, like what I mean. It just shows that there's going to be a new category, and this is a category I'm really focusing on because I believe this is interesting. It's like about human first. Doesn't mean I'm going to be anti-AI. It just means that I believe this category of remarkable brands that are really leaning into human first is incredible. And so that's kind of what I want to leave on is this analog brand concept, and I'm gonna stop sharing now because I got like 50 others. I got a longer slide thing, but I didn't want to. Let's just see if I can stop share. There we go. Pardon me. Okay, there we go. I'm really loving this concept of analog thinking and it because it requires there's a demonstration of craftsmanship that has to show up. Sure, I could have got a bot to respond to you, and I think if we're all going to be really accustomed to like wanting things fast, right? Because like with AI, it's just accelerating the delivery of fast things, and we don't want everything to be fast. I think of I want the line to Disneyland to be fast. But I want once I'm inside Disneyland, I kind of like it to be slow. Like think of the time continuum, time wasted, time spent, time saved, and time well invested, or whatever. That's sort of the continuum there. And it's like I think that people want time well invested, and that feels like when they see something that you've put the effort in there, there's authenticity. It doesn't mean that the others are bad or wrong. It's just more. It's a new category. It's a way of thinking. That's all I want to provoke you to think about is how could you show up and create more trust versus attention? How could you be more authentic? what areas could you really create a sense of just human forward and connection first. So anyways, that's my jam. It's, I don't know, I think almost did 45 minutes, but thank you for listening. That was RipCurrents episode 3. And until next time, mahalo. I think I'm